Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for NFL Week 15. We're going to break all the action down for you here on this slate. For most of you guys, if you're still listening out there, you're probably in the fantasy playoffs. Congratulations. We're going to try to help you out how to get to the next round, how to punch your ticket to the grand old semifinals. We're going to start things off here with the Thursday nighter, as we love to do. We had the Falcons and the Bucs. Kind of a tricky one here. We got the Bucs favored by 4.5. Bucs obviously coming off of a bit of a stunner against the Saints. Falcons coming off a tough one in their own right as well here. So what are we looking at from a fantasy perspective when it comes to this game? Obviously, the big news coming out of Tampa, I believe, is the status of Mike Evans.
Yeah. This is like a lot of games this week. This is a game that I really have a lot of trouble getting a grip on, especially after the way last week went. Like, I guess on the one hand, when a team like the Buccaneers loses to a team like the Saints, you could kind of chalk it up to an anomaly. I mean, the Rams just lost to the Panthers and, turned out to not really be a big deal, but maybe we need to be concerned about something. Certainly there's a number of injuries that the Buccaneers are still working their way through. When they get Mike Evans back, that changes everything. But if we don't know, what's going on with that, then the offense could still be a bit compromised. I mean, the theory of the Buccaneers offense and the standard they set over the last few years, it required Mike Evans' presence, because Mike Evans is I know people argue about this sometimes, but he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the most prototypical receivers of all time. And when he comes back, it'll be like flipping a switch. But in the meantime, I don't know. It's tough to figure out if that left shoulder that Mayfield, that injury, is that little limiting him still. So there's these things going on that are like kind of ongoing excuses for the Buccaneers. But I feel like there's no excuse to losing to the Falcons. And I can't tell if I'm being unfair when I sort of just assume I can kind of just hold the Buccaneers to that. The Falcons have some talent, but they're one of the worst managed teams in the league, and their talent is very uneven. They don't have enough like solid functions that they do well. It's all a bunch of disjointed this or that. Of course, to be fair to them, no Drake London certainly hurts, but I feel like even bad or injured, whatever, Baker Mayfield should be able to kind of take care of business here, because I just feel like the Falcons are just so unserious.
And is there any credence in your mind to the idea that maybe like the Falcons defensively have kind of maybe fallen off from where they were earlier on in the season?
Well, the results certainly have gotten a lot worse. What's tough to tell, in my opinion, is, does that mean they actually got worse, or was this just sort of in a range of outcomes that they had the whole time? And I think the absence of a guy like Zach Harrison hurt. Brandon Dorless, I can't remember if he's missed games lately, but Brandon Dorless was doing really well, especially early in the year. He was out last week. So if Dorless is back, Harrison looks like is out for a while, but if Dorless is back, that defense can definitely be pretty disruptive. They have a variety of pass rushes, of course, but they didn't defend the run well all year, and it's like sometimes the pass rush doesn't quite show up. And when it doesn't, and when they have to sort of just, gear up against the run and deal with it, they usually can't. So I think the Buccaneers need to consider giving more touches to Sean Tucker, even if it's at the expense of Bucky Irving. But I guess even more so, I'm like, can't we just delete Rachaad White if we need to do this? Like, I don't know why Sean Tucker, like Bucky Irving is a really good player, clearly, but his returns from scrimmage have never been clearly enough better than Sean Tucker's to dictate the playing time divide that the team enforces between the two. So the Falcons are bad at defending the run generally, and the Buccaneers even White should be able to run on them in this one. So the Cade Otton absence hurts, but Payne Durham can block at least, so the ground game should be fine.
And that probably, funnels some more targets, out to the receivers. That bodes well for, even guys like Chris Godwin potentially this evening or Thursday evening. Uh, I think that about wraps it up for the
Yeah.
nighter. There's not a ton there that you don't already know. Let's get on to Browns versus Bears. We got the Bears 7.5 point favorites in this one. The Bears, put a scare into the Packers, whereas the Browns, ugh, they lost to the Titans at home. So a bit of a tricky spot for them, of course, here. But your thoughts on this matchup, how that sets up?
Yeah, at least Shador Sanders played well enough. I still don't think he's particularly good. I think that was kind of just a lucky game against a sub NFL caliber defense, but it's still a clear improvement on Dylan Gabriel. So I don't know. I'm not sure I trust the Bears with a spread like this. Of course, losing to the Titans puts the Browns in a uniquely dubious category, but normally the defense is going to get better results than that. And if Shador Sanders is some version of quarterback better than Dylan Gabriel, if the Browns defense comes back to the rises back up to the standard, bounces back up to the standard that they have shown previously this year, I think it's actually a pretty dangerous spot for the Bears, because no matter what, you cannot expect Caleb Williams to play a clean game as a passer right now. And if the ground game isn't there for the Bears, they're just all of a sudden a zero on offense. And I think the Browns can kind of put them in a place like that. But of course, the Browns could give short fields to the Bears, and the Bears could, win by that way. I still do expect Shador Sanders to look pretty rough the longer he's the more exposure he faces here. But I kind of like the Browns to cover, which I guess is bad news for them.
Well, I mean, 7.5, like you said, is it's a different discussion entirely in the betting world. That's more trusting Caleb Williams and company with more than a touchdown. And you touched on it a minute ago, but I want to unpack it a little bit further when it comes to the matchup between the Bears run game and the Browns run defense, because out of nowhere last week Tony Pollard had the huge game. I think that will stand as an anomaly, and probably as a result of that, like the Browns will probably be more focused on shutting down the run this week. But the Bears have just been a machine on the ground between DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, especially since their bye. So from a fantasy perspective, you're feeling pretty confident about. I mean, I think you're starting Swift pretty much no matter what. But is Monangai kind of in your circle of trust here as well, given the matchup?
Not really, though. Not because I doubt Monangai himself. I think he's the real deal for sure. I guess one thing to keep in mind, and this could maybe even explain the spread. The Browns have a lot of injuries on defense. It's like Mason Graham out with didn't practice with a rib thing. Delpit didn't practice. Rayshawn Jenkins limited. Denzel Ward did not practice with a calf thing. So maybe the Bears are just going to be able to do what they've done lately and keep winning, which is sort of this stripped down primitive offense that just kind of puts the ball in the running back's hands, bets on their ability to run block well enough to just eke out first downs, keep possession, accumulate field position slowly if necessary, but surely. It's a formula that makes sense, I think, for obvious enough reasons. I know you'd think the Bears are inventing some kind of new sort of offense. Like, what are they talking about? Running the ball 2 times in a row? Are they crazy? But it makes sense. And I think the Bears' run defense is vulnerable to Judkins on the other side, but I don't know. I think even if the Bears are sort of clean on offense, and even if Monangai and Swift are efficient with their usage, I think the Browns might be able to cover if Sanders is just, again, like better than Gabriel. But now that I look at the injury report, like the Browns defense is not nearly so scary, especially if some of these guys are out.
Yeah, exactly. So, you run into a situation there where if
Graham's very important, for instance. Like if he's out,
huge.
then it's like, oh well, yeah, the run defense would suck without Mason Graham.
That's what I'm worried about too. And the idea of like the Browns in a catch up script, I think I'm still not sold on that being a particular like comfort
Yeah,
zone for them. Your thoughts on Harold Fannin though? We have him ranked
the
as
greatest
tight
of
end
all time.
13.
I
So
mean, to be
13 too
serious,
low.
he's on such a good track right now, and it'd be one thing if this was sort of like a blip in his career. If he could fit into there are like other like flashes in the pan that show up and disappear even after doing somewhat memorable things, but Fannon's always done this. Like he was so productive at Bowling Green in a way that you very rarely see, and he's not even going to be 22 until something like late July. So for him to put up numbers like he has in an offense that's as bad of a passing offense as the Browns are, I think in fantasy, in dynasty, it's like this could be the next 100 catch tight end. Even if Colston Loveland's awesome, even if Tyler Warren's awesome, Fannin might be as good as them or better, importantly in fantasy at least. So I don't really understand how he's been so good this year, but Fannon's done enough. Had done enough even as recent, 2 months ago almost. It was time to just say like, yeah, Fannon's good. Go ahead, start him if you want. Still in that category for me.
I think so as well. I'm happy to have him where I do. Of course, at this stage of the season, we got a question from our guy Master. We got to sit two of these guys. Devin Neal, if Alvin Kamara is out, Quinshon Judkins, Debo Samuel, Tyrone Tracy, and Isaiah Likely. I think the last two are probably your answer in that setup.
I'm kind of intrigued by Tracy against that Washington defense because they're so bad. But yeah, I gotta. Let me think just real quick here. I might actually sit Neal out of that. I don't know. It's tough to say. These Likely for sure, and then just somebody else. Whatever, Debo, Tracy, somebody.
Yeah, Likely. I'm starting him if I'm like really, really in a bind at tight end. I feel like despite the misgivings that he's had the last couple of weeks, like he's actually starting to play kind of well. But the lowlights have been really, really low for Isaiah Likely, and what a big whiff from me this year. I thought that he was going to be awesome. Not really been the
Well,
case.
we thought the Ravens would be a little bit better,
Yeah,
so
just a little.
I guess it makes sense that he wouldn't have turned out as well as we hoped.
Yeah, my Ravens 7-1 to win the Super Bowl tickets are basically as good as
John Harbaugh just needs to kind of set adrift.
Michigan just opened yesterday, so I mean, seems to make sense to
Keep it
me.
in the family. I don't just get out of Baltimore and Eric DaCosta too. That guy bad.
Yeah, I'm ready for a bit of a house cleaning as well. And speaking of the Ravens, they go up to Cincinnati. They're playing the Bengals. It's gonna be really cold up there in Cincy. The Ravens somehow still favored by 2.5 on the road in this spot. Bengals, they really kind of, I felt like they had the Bills for the first like three quarters of that game, and then the Bengals defense that we know and love from the bulk of this season reared their ugly heads in the fourth quarter and allowed Buffalo to go ahead and have that come from behind victory against them. So I don't know. What do you think of this matchup? We have a pretty recent sample, of course, with Thanksgiving night with these two teams here. Burrow, that was his return game. Wasn't overly sharp in that game, but the Ravens had a ton of turnovers in that one. This one's a tricky one for me to figure out here, especially at 2.5.
Yeah. On the one hand, I still think just giving Derrick Henry 20 carries and ideally, I don't know, 10 carries to Keaton Mitchell or something. I feel like the Bengals run defense has shown they wouldn't be able to withstand that, but I don't know. They already played. The Bengals already beat them. I guess if T. Higgins is out, that's a pretty obviously that changes the complexion of the Bengals offense. That that alone might be worth lowering their point projection if he were out. Trey Hendrickson, of course, when he's not there, they don't have a pass rush really. So there's no obvious way, in my opinion, that the Bengals could carve out like a dominant position in this game. But I don't know. The Ravens are just a poorly managed team, and now there's sort of like a political fallout occurring there too. I think where it's like Munkin just wants out. I think Harbaugh is kind of like losing control of things, and I just don't trust them to to take care of business the way that they used to. They're basically just dissolving as a team, and the Bengals have all kinds of problems, of course, but at least they're sort of settled into their misery and like they have resolve within their situation. Whereas like the Ravens, I'm sure if Lamar tried to get them to play hard for him, like they generally would, but like I don't even know how much Lamar can have the bandwidth to care anymore. It's like doing everything right so many times in a row to just get undermined by the most ridiculous circumstances. And the injury, I guess, could be substantial too. So not to minimize that, but this Ravens team, it's lost its focus. It's lost its the fabric that made it up before is just ripped.
It is. It's sort of like the cafeteria scene in Billy Madison, where Billy goes and sits down with his buddies and gets a pudding poured on his head, and his buddies are like, "You're just in loser denial." Like they know that they're losers, and Billy can't quite get there. I think that the Ravens are at the loser table now, and they are sort of in denial about it. If they lose Sunday, I think that pretty much puts an end to the season. So there is that element of desperation, but they've been in desperation for the last couple of weeks. They've been in desperation since the bye week, since starting 1-5. And yes, they rattled off some
It feels
wins
like they've
against
been
bad teams.
desperate since like the fourth quarter of week 1.
Yeah. And I think they're kind of running out of gas. I think to your point on T. Higgins, it doesn't look good for his status. We have him ranked really low, sort of like under the expectation that he misses this game. I think he was out for the Thanksgiving game as well. So you can expect Jamar Chase to be very, very busy in this one. Do you think that Mike Gesicki is on your radar at all after his game last week?
Sure. I think while it's weird and it's unpredictable how the Bengals use their tight ends, Gesicki has always been pretty automatic as a pass catcher. Maybe he's a false tight end, but I never understood why the Bengals ever played Andre Yosivas in the slot over Gesicki. Just if Gesicki's a fake tight end, just make him a slot receiver. Who cares? Especially if it's Yosivas that's the alternative. But if the snaps are there, if the routes are there, Gesicki is more likely to come through than not. He's made that pretty clear over the years.
I think so too. I know this is a nobody cares about your fantasy team moment here, but I have a best ball team that was completely carried by my Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, like Indianapolis stack, and that's completely fallen apart. But that team was built on a huge Cincinnati stack with Burrow, Chase Brown, and Gesicki. So that suddenly is alive again. So we might find a way here, folks.
It would still be nice to see more snaps. Admittedly, I didn't realize he only played 24 snaps. He just got like targeted aggressively in those 24. Give him more snaps, Zach Taylor. See how easy that was? Just do more of that.
Yeah, and with Higgins being sidelined, I think we could see a little bit more of that. Obviously, we're gonna see some receivers get upticks and snaps like Yoshivash or maybe Tinsley, but I don't know. The Ravens and Bengals, if nothing else, always kind of give you an entertaining game. So looking forward to this one on Sunday up in Cincy. Before we get on over to our next game, we got a message from our friends at Dabble. Dabble isn't just another DFS app. It's the ultimate social platform where you can connect with other fantasy sports lovers. Dabble lets you win big. You can win up to 5,000 times your money this football season. Starting with Dabble is easy. New users get $25 free when signing up. No deposit necessary. Check out the link in the episode description below to download Dabble today. We also got a message from our friends over at Prosper Trading. Every weekend, millions bet on sports hoping to beat the odds. But here's the truth. The house always wins. But with trading, you're not betting, you're building. At Prosper Trading Academy, we give you the tools, the education, and the live guidance to actually create an edge. You can control your risk, compound your wins, and trade alongside real pros every single day. Stop gambling on games you can't control. Start trading the markets you can. Visit prospertrading.com/ROTO today and take your shot at real financial growth. Next up, my gravy train might be hitting a snag here, Mario. I've loved watching the Jacoby Brissett Cardinals. They're sort of like to put it in like NBA terms, it's like they're your favorite like crappy team that you love watching on League Pass. They're just fun. Like they're not good, but they always give you some entertainment. But they're playing the Texans. That seems like a bad setup. This one in Houston, the Texans 9.5-point favorites in this one. I kind of bounced this theory off of Jeff and Nick on the XM show earlier this week. I don't think it's a bad bet to make on the Texans winning the AFC right now. It's like 5-1.
Yeah, it's kind of a harrowing path they would need to take, because I think there's nothing they can do about the offensive line this year. I still think if they have that offensive personnel where they should have had it all along, then CJ Stroud immediately becomes an MVP candidate. But in the meantime, I don't know if functionally I don't know if there's like the space and the infrastructure for him to have an effect on the game that much different than Davis Mills. It's just like it's just hard for anybody to produce there. Their defense, though, of course, it's approaching like a pretty memorable kind of distinction at this point. I think it's pretty easy to argue this year they're the best defense. So if you have the best defense in the league, Denver, I guess. And I guess now that I think about it, I don't know how to call it. Whatever, toss up. I think how to say this. Denver's defense is maybe better than the Texans one, in that at least they have better coverage, like man coverage personnel, than the Texans do. But the Texans, I assume I haven't looked. I assume they're doing some kind of like cover 3 type of stuff, if only because of Ryans' proximity to Robert Saleh, and Saleh coming from, the Legion of Boom background. But they definitely do a bunch of like zone hybrid kind of stuff that the Broncos probably do a little less. And the pass rush, when it's going nuts, which paired with its run defense, which is still very good, the Texans can kind of just turn an offense into a zero. And in the playoffs, of course, where it's a 1-game series, that's pretty important. If you can take an offense that's otherwise dominant and otherwise the main reason that the team you're going against made the playoffs in the first place, if you can just turn them into a blank for 3 or 4 quarters, then your offense can be bad and still you might come out ahead. So for the odds, yeah, nothing wrong with that, especially because of, it's hard to accumulate yards against Houston, and it's hard to avoid turnovers against Houston.
So, yeah, my thinking was basically it's pretty wide open as far as the AFC odds are concerned. I mean, you have the Bills right now. If the playoffs were to start today, they're the 6th seed. Probably kind of behind the 8 ball to win their division, but I guess this weekend we'll get to that game. Could change things a little bit. Denver, they're plus 350. They have the easier path theoretically. If they can just keep marching on and get the 1 seed, I think their schedule kind of dictates that they should be able to do that. But I think what you said at the beginning about the Texans, like it's a memorably good defense. Like I think this is the best defense that I can really point to since like Denver's Super Bowl run in 2015 or whatever. Like it's that good. It's that just kind of dominant. I mean, we saw what they did against the Bills, against the Chiefs, and they've done it to a lot of other teams as well. I mean, they're so ferocious. They're so well coached. They're so talented on that side of the ball that if the offense can just give them like a B-, C+ type of game, that's going to give them a chance to win, I think, against almost anybody. And you can kind of say similar things about Denver, but then, the odds differential between the Texans and the Broncos, I think, would steer me again towards the Texans. And I do trust CJ Stroud more than I do Bo Nix, frankly, at this particular juncture. So, like, I think Bo Nix is the
Bo Nix gets to play on easy mode, but he can still blow it.
Yeah, we've seen that time and time again. So, although they have won like a million games in a row, but it hasn't always been
regression
because of Bo. So, anyway, So as it pertains to this game, obviously the Texans are coming off the huge win. They got to cover a big number. Do you think there's any like risk here, given the fact that they're probably going to get tested through the air 35, 40, 45 times in this one, that maybe the Texans let down just a little bit in the spot? Not to say that they lose outright, but maybe this game ends up being a little bit closer than they would have hoped.
Well, I still think there's some ways you can hurt this Houston defense, specifically just go downfield, get downfield speed, downfield reach. Derek Stingley can run downfield. He's a true cornerback one. He might be the best corner. I guess it's him or Surtain is probably the best corner right now. But Lassiter is a really good scheme fit for that defense and still not a true cover guy. 4.65 speed at corner. That used to be something you just never saw. It just wasn't allowed. Like, you had to play safety. So there's a lot of zone kind of stuff going on there. There's space oriented assignments that they give Lassiter rather than man coverage. And those zones can only stretch so far. And just because it's a zone doesn't mean you can't beat Lassiter deep, especially with how aggressively he crashes downwards. So when you have a safety like Petrie in the slot, and if you have Lassiter running a 4.65 on the outside, I think you can burn them deep. But of course, the pass rush tends to arrive there before then. So I don't trust. How to say this? I don't consider the Houston pass defense unbeatable, but I think the Cardinals lack the thing that the Texans are weakest against, and so even a guy like Michael Wilson, who still I still think he's really good, and I think is if Harrison's out, especially, you just start Wilson. There's no reason to think about it. I still think this is a game where he maybe gets something more like 8 catches for 80 yards than his customary 14 catches for 190 yards or whatever he's been doing for the past month. So in that detail, though, it would indicate that the Cardinals fell off, conclusively from the level they've otherwise set lately, because it has been insane with both McBride and Wilson lately. And if Wilson has mere mortal numbers, then it's like, oh, the Cardinals didn't cover.
Right. So, I mean, it's the Cardinals are unique with the way that they run their offense, or how they kind of have to run their offense. And, we got the news earlier this week that Trey Benson was going to miss the rest of the season. So no real ground game to talk about, but they're going to throw it 40 times. Most of it's going to McBride and Wilson. So if you have them in PPR, even with the tough matchup, I think you still feel good about starting them. Standard, I understand a little bit more consternation, but I think just the way that the targets are, or the target pie is so massive and yet narrowly concentrated between those two guys, you still got to fire them in.
Oh yeah, McBride's a no-brainer for sure. And then Wilson, even in standard, it's like you better have a pretty good team to leave him on the bench right now. At least if Harrison's out, I should say.
That's what I'm thinking. And then, for the Texans offense, is this a good spot for them to kind of, flex their muscle a little bit?
Man, I am not at all against the bet that you mentioned, the 5-1 on Houston, but I would love their chances so much more if they just had even a semblance of a serious running game. Like, Woody Marks is a decent player, but he's not a runner. He never even ostensibly was supposed to be a good runner. So when part of the Houston plan lately is part of their new idea to fix what's been wrong this year is, what if we give Woody Marks like 25 carries in a game every week? Like, that's to me a bad idea. Like, I don't know what you expect good to happen with that. That's not what he's supposed to be good at. He's supposed to be good as a pass catcher, and as a runner, he's supposed to be a drawback, basically, a guy you give like 6 to 8 carries to in a game, and then on draws as much as possible. So that offense is truly dead on the ground, and that's a good way to undermine a really killer defense. Like, if they had a solid run game to pair with that defense, that's really, stepping on the neck of the other team. But that Houston defense too can be undermined by the number of times that the Texans it's like 3rd and 9, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 9. It's kind of a mess, and I'm not really expecting much yards from scrimmage in the Houston backfield. The pass catching should be fine. I mean, Nico Collins, automatic. I think we've seen Jaden Higgins kind of grow a little bit and give them something new. something that should only get better, by the way. I mean, I think Higgins has a pretty high ceiling, so it's not like I'm expecting him to plateau anytime soon. So those receivers, that's the strength of the offense right now, and it's whatever. It's not an easy matchup against the Arizona defense, but it shouldn't be so dangerous that the Texans fall apart on offense. And as long as they don't turn it over, they should be able to take care of this.
I think so too. I don't think that they're going to let down. Not at this stage of the season, even with the big win up in KC.
They got to take care of Calais Campbell and Josh Sweat, and if they just do that, it really all should work itself out.
I think so, and yeah, suffocating defense will kind of help things, and then we're off and running. We got the Jets and the Jags. The Jags 13-point favorites. I'm going to start with this. I respected Brady Cook's college career a lot. I thought that guy was tough, hard-nosed. The Missouri team from a couple years ago was an excellent team. At no point did I think he was an NFL quarterback, though. So I think that sort of informs the spread here.
It does. It's too bad because it's definitely not Cook's fault. It's like he wasn't supposed to end up in this position. But it is a tough spot, in my opinion. Like you said, Cook is tough. He can run a little bit, so I don't know. There's some amount of something he can do, but as a passer, it's very little at best, and it might be kind of just like all bad as far as that goes. So Aiden Mitchell, if you're chasing the air yardage, it's sort of justifiable, I think. But this is a setting where you have to assume the Jets might throw the ball fewer than 25 times. Even if they want to throw it more, they might just punt too much to throw more than something like 25 times. And on those passes, whatever this pass attempt volume is for Cook, you got to worry about low completion percentage, low yards per target. So I don't know what other than Breece Hall, I don't know what this Jets offense has going for it realistically here. And that's not much when, in my opinion, the Jaguars defense is pretty well coached, looks pretty good, and they don't have to worry about anything but the run in this game. So I think that's something they're going to easily handle.
So with that in mind, when it comes to Breece Hall, obviously wasn't practicing on Wednesday. If he's good to go with that implied heavy run script, do you still feel good about starting him, just kind of expecting a high volume, low efficiency type of day, or are we worried additionally about the amount of volume that he could take on?
Yeah, I wish we knew more about what was going on with his knee. I hope I can assume it's not a ligament related thing. Like, in other words, this isn't like he's questionable with an MCL tweak. It's more described as knee soreness, which, could be general kind of non-specific kind of source. And that's something that pretty reliably gets better with rest and is more easily played through. So I guess for now, I have, I don't know, not my fingers crossed exactly. I worry for Breece Hall either way in the matchup, but I have my fingers crossed that this is maybe more of like a maintenance absence that he had Wednesday. We'll see. I guess it's pretty early on in the day here whether that was the case. If Hall misses Thursday practice, then I'm like, no. Let's try to find something else, because then it's even if he plays in that case, it's like 80-85% Breece Hall on one of the worst offenses you've ever seen. It's not fair to expect him to do that well in that case. So if he seems like he's ready to go, then it's a justifiable flex play at least. But yeah, it's just with Cook at quarterback, we also might be back to the Justin Fields point again, where Hall doesn't really get viable targets because the quarterback just can't do it.
Yeah. So Hall with everything that you just mentioned, or Kyle Monangai this week?
Ooh, that is tough. John, can I maybe outsource that to the who should I start tool?
I think that's an excellent way to figure this one out.
But so yeah, I need a robot to tell me, because I'm only gonna flip a coin otherwise, which isn't very scientific.
Okay, here we have it. So if you aren't a RotoWire subscriber, here's a little free tutorial for you on one of our tools that we just launched this season. Who should I start? Very simple. So we got Brees Hall, we got Kyle Monangai. Let's hit that little button that says decide. The computer still likes Brees. Computer still likes
Fair
Brees
enough.
in this one.
I do think Brees is the better player. So I like Monangai quite a bit, but to me, Hall is a very uniquely good running back when he's healthy. I just think not to invite the machine's wrath. I think it might have trouble at this point in the week quantifying Hall's injury status weight in this question. So I'm still thinking coin flip, but yeah, if Brees Hall is ready to go, if the reporting is like he's going to play, I would probably lean with him. But it's just there's a lot of anxiety about the quarterback and the knee injury, I guess, to a lesser extent.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn just because I'm worried about like the Jets' overall like total yardage projection.
Honestly, I kind of just hope that Hall doesn't play, so I don't have to be wrong about this because I'm going to be wrong whichever way I pick it. But it really is something to keep an eye on. Even though it's knee soreness, the Jets at this point definitely have an interest in getting Hall to the offseason healthy. They don't want him going into free agency with like a torn meniscus. So if they are concerned about the knee, they might make it clear, and it's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely, and our guy Matty, he's kind of getting put to the fire here because if he can't start Brees Hall this weekend, he has to make a call on that tonight with Tyler Algier, and he would be starting both the Atlanta running backs.
I guess I would prefer to go Hall in that case over Algier, of course, but maybe you can pick up Isaiah Davis to protect yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's get a waiver, option number 3, door number 3 type of situation there. So I think that's the way you play it. I would not be starting both Atlanta guys guys in the backfield in the playoffs and be feeling particularly great about it. On the Jaguars side of things, this offense has been kind of cooking lately. Do you expect more of the same here?
The Myers trade has definitely helped, and I've been pretty critical of Brian Thomas this year, but if it takes a decrease in his target share, so he can specialize in just the perimeter, just the downfield, just the sideline kind of routes, that's not ideal in the one hand for fantasy because you're sort of just forfeiting targets when you don't also run over the middle and draw those kinds of targets, the targets that are now going to Jacoby Myers, correctly so. But the Myers addition has meaningfully changed the offense. I still think the offensive line is kind of crap, and I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I love ETN, but I don't like the idea of kind of having to put the whole offense on him, which is where they get when Trevor's struggling. But I don't know. Maybe with Myers there, with Brenton Strange back, maybe they can kind of just look like a normal offense for the first time in like 3-4 years or whatever. And it's I think it's been encouraging how Liam Cohen has managed them. Their exact vision of the offense didn't quite come together. They had to trial and error their way through the season a little bit, but I definitely see a lot more adjustment capacity with Liam Cohen than we saw with Doug Peterson. And I don't know. I for this game, I guess I expect it to be more like I hope it's more of a Tootin kind of game. I don't think you want to give ETN the kind of workload he's taken over the past 6 weeks over an entire year, if you can at all avoid it. But yeah, Jacoby Myers is keeping them on schedule. They're getting more first downs. It takes less. It takes some pressure off of Thomas, so he can be more like a big play specialist. And I think you're starting to see a more healthy equilibrium occur there.
So I'm kind of trying to draw parallels between this team and like the 2022 Jaguars, or 2023, whichever year that they made the playoffs and beat the Chargers and made it to beat or play against the Chiefs in the divisional round, where Christian Kirk was kind of panned as a free agent acquisition because I think he was like the top billed receiver free agent that year, but he really kind of like like you're saying about keeping things on schedule, like he was able to keep Trevor Lawrence on schedule in a really significant way. And it feels like Jacoby Myers is kind of having a similar impact here for this Jaguars offense.
Yeah, Strange too. I mean, Brenton Strange really might be an above average starting NFL tight end, even if he's kind of quiet about how he goes about it. And it really does make Brian Thomas better if Jacoby Myers is sort of moving the chains when they need someone to move the chains, and if defenses have to account for Myers' presence there, it dilutes the coverage that they can pad over the top, and the big plays will show up more easily now that they're staying on schedule more often.
And then, going back to your run game point there, is less for season long, but given like the spread in this game where the Jaguars, 13.5 point favorites, 13-point favorites, good implied total. You think Tootin's maybe on your DFS radar this weekend?
Yeah, I don't know how much upside I would see in it. I'd almost it wouldn't be a cash game thing exactly because there's certainly some risk there, but if I was the Jaguars, I would consider it like one of the main priorities of this game to get ETN some rest. You can't just put 20 carries on ETN every week. He's not built for it. So we've seen what happens when they do that. I'd rather not see the same outcome as the other times, which was in each case he got hurt. And keeping ETN fresh, keeping ETN electric is important for the Jaguars to have any chance of competing in the playoffs. So Tootin could use the reps. ETN could use the rest.
So therein lies, the thinking there potentially when it comes to Tootin getting some work here.
Allen might play is the thing though, so it's like I guess tournament only kind of thing. LeKint, I mean.
Yes, LeKint Allen. Wow. All right, moving on. We got the Chargers and the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Chiefs, despite being kind of dead in the water, 5.5-point favorites. I think that speaks to just how beat up this Chargers team is right now. The get in for this game at Arrowhead is like $40. Like, I think the Chiefs fans they're not loving this season.
They're fair weather fans, I guess, but it's understandable enough. I mean, it's a pretty brutal season for the Chiefs. It is really crazy that as a starter, Patrick Mahomes has never not made it to the AFC Championship game, and then you have to go from that status quo to this one, which it's hard to accept, I'm sure, for Chiefs fans, but it makes enough sense that they would struggle to the tune that they have, especially when you account for the offensive line injuries. And I would personally have a litany of criticisms to make about Andy Reid, but to be fair to Reid, especially last week, any team, if you're taking 3 of their starting offensive linemen, and especially if they're if it's a Mike Frank Caliendo caliber replacements, like you just
doing an impression of an offensive lineman. Am I right?
Oh my God. Yeah. And in a way, the anti Frank, because it's a bad impression. Yeah. So it's a situation with the Chiefs where going in, you're like, yeah, this is bad. This is definitely bad. And then it turned out bad. And it's just kind of, you got to be ready for that kind of worst case scenario to occur. And as far as this matchup with the Chargers goes, I don't know. I don't know for sure how the Chiefs are supposed to get that 5.5, because I feel like the Chargers present a lot of similar challenges as the Texans, like not as good of a defense, but a similar version of it. Like they're kind of on a similar beat, kind of like aggressive zone kind of defense. And if those backup offensive linemen need to play again for the Chiefs, let's see, Juwan Taylor was not practicing as of yesterday. Wanya Morris wasn't practicing yesterday, so they might need to be down to a 3rd string left tackle in addition to whatever, a backup right guard.
Last week, oddly enough, and this almost made me mad during the game, because Asa Pohl out of Wazoo gets plugged in at left tackle and like kind of shut down Danielle Hunter, or at least relatively speaking. I'm like, how do you find this guy? The Chiefs just get all the luck sometimes.
Yeah, at least this year it might be a little too late. But also, I missed that Trey Smith was back in practice, so that's a big deal. That removes the Caliendo concern entirely. So for this game, the Chiefs should have two of those starters back, basically, and yeah, they should be okay. Like you said, the Chargers are definitely beat up, and the Chargers, even though they're competitive, even though they're very serious about competing this year, they're still rebuilding. Like that defense still could use some more real talents. They're kind of doing a Moneyball thing, almost as just like a practical thing. Like they couldn't rebuild the whole thing in one offseason, so they're going to have to use some smoke and mirrors to get the job done. But I guess maybe if you're banking on the Chiefs covering here, it's the Arrowhead factor, which did not save them last week, so I don't know how much to put into it these days, but also just that Herbert with the broken left hand, like they got the job done against the Eagles, but it took 4 interceptions from Jalen Hurts to do it. It took a fluky kind of 61-yard run and catch by Kamani Vidal to set up one of the precious scoring drives. So the Chargers are definitely they're playing, they're limping, and you can't count them out. They're always going to show up as much as it's physically possible to do. But we also saw that Jags game. It's like the Chargers do have their moments where they just sort of fall over.
Yeah, I think that despite winning, and it was impressive to scratch out the victory despite not playing super well on Monday night, I did think that said a little bit more about the Eagles, and as rightfully down as people, myself included, are on the Chiefs right now at home, 5.5. I think I do like the Chiefs to show at least a little bit of something. And if nothing else, play a little bit of spoiler here for the Chargers, for their divisional foe, get them back for week 1 in this spot. Bills Patriots at 1:00 is our next game. So, you got to keep the Cowboys in prime time, even though we have to watch JJ McCarthy as a result of that. But that's for later in the show. Bills Patriots 1.5 point home dogs.
Yeah, that's a little odd. Of course, Vegas always has their reasons. It's not for us to doubt it. It's for us to figure out what we missed. And I guess if you're trying to find a limitation with the Patriots, maybe you would say the fact that Drake May has not really aired it out this year indicates that they maybe can't play shootout ball that well. Like Drake May, for instance, has mostly thrown around the 30 pass attempts per game kind of figure. And the one time that he threw more than 40, he actually struggled against the Raiders in week 1. Maybe the assumption is the Bills, through, just general Josh Allen aggression, force a shootout kind of game, and maybe that takes the Patriots out of their element a little bit. But it also might be that the spread at this point, while everybody knows that the Patriots are good and expectations are high for them at this point, it still might be a little bit of a sort of the kind of spread that you face when you're the Patriots, and that you get the benefit of when you're the Bills, when the Bills are the one that sort of proved it most recently in the higher levels, like playoffs ambitions specifically. And maybe the Patriots are seen as more of still just a surprising upstart and less of like a true contender. And maybe they don't get that benefit of the doubt until they win in a game like this one. Exactly. I definitely don't want to pick against the Patriots. I think they're real. I know they're not as good of a team. Like if the Patriots are a top 3 team in the NFL this year, that's a reason to believe that it was a bad year for the NFL. But I still think that they do have that relative kind of field. And I think if anyone's assuming that the Patriots can't shoot it out, that would probably be a little bit hasty of an assumption, especially if the Patriots have the option at any time of sort of just cutting loose Stephon Diggs, which I kind of think they do, and I think they will in this game. I mean, obviously he already torched the Bills the last time around, but like he only played 30 snaps in that game. He only played 31 snaps last week. If the Patriots just decide Diggs is playing 55 snaps in this game, that might be all that it takes for May to all of a sudden go up to 40 pass attempts. And efficiency wise, Drake May has been on a uniquely high level this year. The completion percentage, yards per attempt. The sacks are still a little bit of an issue. I blame that on the offensive line, which is still in a rebuilding mode. It's not a finished product, but Drake May is the real deal. And I don't think it's any hyperbole to say that he will soon be in that category, maybe for fantasy too, but for real life at the very least. It's not going to be something people laugh at if someone were to argue Drake May is as good as Josh Allen.
Yeah, unfortunately, for anyone that was ready for the Patriots to just go back into oblivion, I think Drake May will prevent that. He's very much the real deal. Yeah, I think we do see more of a shootout in this spot because when the Patriots and Bills played earlier this season, it was like week 4, something like that, week 5. And it was like the Bills kind of like, I wouldn't say they didn't take it seriously, but they didn't play like they had been to open the year. They sort of like played conservative. They were making mistakes that were kind of uncharacteristic, and they were kind of like stunned that the Patriots were able to hang around the way that they did, and then the Patriots kind of steal the game from them at the end. I think their eyes are a lot more open going into this spot. They know they need this game. I think the Bills go in there and at least force the issue when it comes to what you're saying game script wise with the Patriots, like really kind of having to rely on Drake May there, maybe throwing a little bit more than we're used to seeing. And especially considering the weaponry around him other than Stephon Diggs. I think Diggs will be ready to rock here. They had the bye last week, so it should be fresh. Him against the Bills seems like a good thing to target, but can the other guys, like Hunter Henry or Kayshon Boutte, like can those guys step up in this situation to kind of meet the moment? I'm going to give my lean to the Bills here, but it's I think this game is going to live up to its billing. I'm pretty excited for this one.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll take the Patriots, but I'm kind of banking on, kind of like I was alluding to with the spread. It's like sometimes when a paradigm is about to shift, the spread doesn't quite catch up to it until it's clear that the shift occurred. And it's more in the shift that I'm more so talking about is the ascent of the Patriots. It's not that I'm like, oh, the Bills have been shown to be frauds and now it's open season on them. It's more like it's not been proven yet that the Patriots are the kind of team that you have to take seriously in the playoffs at the highest levels of the playoffs. But I think they are. And I think with Josh Allen having such short-handed pass catching personnel and thus the Bills being even more dependent on the run this year than they were last year, that's just a bad thing. The Patriots run defense is great, and that those conditions are not variables that the Bills have faced for most of this window, this dominant window of theirs. It's more so been different conditions where they were dominant, and I am not sure the conditions are similar enough in this case for those prior assumptions to hold in this case.
I am a little bit worried about Cook against this Patriots run defense. I have him in some spots and going to start him no matter what, but definitely not expecting like a ceiling game from him.
They're so dependent on him, though. I mean, I think, Cook can probably rank in the top 5-ish for fantasy, even though it's a brutal matchup.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen, like there was that really close play at the pylon last week, but we've seen spots where Cook should smash and he doesn't, and spots where he, has a tough matchup on paper and he ends up lighting it up. So, he's kind of like that right now with the way that the Bills are operating. Again, you're on the Patriots. I'm on the Bills. Excited for this one. Let's get on over NFC East. We've got the Giants and the Commanders. Giants 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, pretty brutal for Washington. I guess they were going to lose that game no matter what the play calling was, and even if Daniels hadn't gotten hurt. But man, that was crazy how flat they came out. And I guess the takeaway there is don't pick Cliff Kingsbury when he goes against Brian Flores. It's so weird to me that the Vikings struggled against some other teams, and to be fair to Kingsbury, Washington held it together against the Broncos of all defenses.
I know.
How did it get so bad that it's just you can't do anything? You can run the ball with Chris Rodriguez. That's the one thing you can do against the Vikings, but you choose not to do it. You get to the 2-yard line on the first drive, pretty much Rodriguez getting you there. and then you throw it 3 times from the 2-yard line. Games can fall, into a disaster script over things over pivots as seemingly meaningless as those. It's like if Washington just gives Rodriguez the ball more and they get a touchdown, the complexion of the game might have changed quite a bit. So in the same sense, I think if Washington is smart enough to just give the ball to Chris Rodriguez, who's clearly their most formidable option from scrimmage at the moment, there's easy yards to take against the Giants. But when Cliff Kingsbury has had easy yards to take, he's generally gotten cute and declined the option. And that will almost always get you into trouble, even against a team like the Giants, it would. So with the Washington defense being just pretty much destroyed this year, I think you give the benefit of the doubt to the Giants offense. It's like you don't really know who is going to be how productive or whether anyone's going to have like a truly great game, but the Washington defense can't easily stop anyone, and the Giants should be able to move the ball. So I like Mariota. I think he should be more or less fine, but I have no idea how to call the game because it's like I feel like I've been watching all year where it's just Chris Rodriguez moves the ball for Washington. They go away from him. Washington doesn't move the ball.
It has felt that way. It's just kind of been a season from hell for Washington. As far as like the fallout from that is concerned, with the move back to Mariota, who I think is, one of the better backups as far as like being able to operate the offense, to a lesser extent than the starter, but still, respectably well. But what does that do for you in your outlook for, Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel in this setup? Obviously, they lose Zach Ertz last week as well.
Right. Yeah. Mariota definitely hurts. I guess it didn't really against the Broncos of all teams, but it should hurt McLaurin the most because Mariota has always lacked a deep ball. Like he's generally proficient at simple underneath kind of stuff, but that go route with Daniels was largely the whole offense in a way. Like that was like their main kill plays, that go route to McLaurin, and just isn't there now. So McLaurin, you don't want to bench a guy like that, especially when he just showed what he could do with Mariota, even against a defense that has Patrick Surtain. But if someone just found the situation too creepy in general and was looking for a reason to bench him, I wouldn't really fault them for it. Especially when, as I just said, I kind of think the key to winning for Washington is just leaning on the ground game as much as possible, basically.
Where are you with Jackson Dart in this setup?
It should be a really good setup. I don't know. He's been a little difficult to predict in my opinion, in that some of Dart's totally good fantasy games have been in either tough matchups or even matchups where he didn't even play all that well in real life terms, but the rushing production kind of still made it good fantasy starts. He's had really good numbers against defenses much tougher than this. So I wouldn't really be able to criticize anyone for ranking Dart quite high at quarterback this week.
I'm liking him. I could see myself throwing a Dart lineup out there, but I never know who to
I mean, it's such a cheap stack too. Like Isaiah Hodgins can definitely produce against this defense. You see Theo Johnson have 6 catch games occasionally. Wandale, Slayton, and Hodgins can absolutely beat up this Washington secondary.
So that's kind of where I'm leaning with this one. I think I like the Giants at home in this one. Next game might be the most cursed game on the slate. We got the Raiders and the Eagles. Eagles 11-point favorites. I think I saw on ESPN this morning that the Eagles are 0-6 covering their last 6 games as favorites of 10 or more points. But the Raiders are the Raiders. But we know after last week that the Raiders will kick a field goal to cover the spread as well. I'm not bitter. I'm definitely not bitter about that. But this setup here with the Eagles kind of reeling here. I drew this comparison a few weeks ago where it's starting to feel a little bit like the 2023 season where they really limped to the finish line, made it to the playoffs, but we're one and done in there. But the Raiders to me are the worst team in football. So like for all my critiques of this Eagles team, they do kind of go out the window when it's the Raiders on the other side.
Yeah, the Raiders are a pretty contemptibly bad organization, and it does feel truly silly to go giving them any benefit of the doubt at all. But as far as the spread goes, at least, I guess I just find that to be a lot of points for 2025 Jalen Hurts, who
Yep.
has pretty much just looked awful. It was shocking before the Chargers game. When I looked at Hurts's numbers on the year, specifically the touchdowns, the interceptions, I was like, what? How is it 17-1? It felt like 8-7 or something when I was watching it. 17-1. What the hell was going on? I must have been thinking of something else. And then the Chargers game happened, and it's like, oh, there it is. There's the correction. And Hurts, I'm sure Hurts was doing a good job of avoiding turnovers, but he did it with too costly of a trade-off, which is that they just were missing all of these pretty easy throws that they kind of needed to make to score the number of points they needed to win. And Hurts just wasn't throwing those passes because he doesn't have the ability to make those throws without taking on a certain level of turnover risk. And he knew that, so he just didn't throw those passes. And I think you saw in that Chargers game, either Hurts got desperate enough to start making some of those throws, and the Chargers successfully tricked him into thinking he was in sort of risk-free scenarios when there was actually a trap waiting right there. So I don't know. It's tough for me to envision what gives next. I guess I would assume Hurts goes back into a more cautious kind of mode and thus undermines AJ Brown again. Maybe AJ Brown somehow has his worst game in a month, even though it's an easy matchup, just because Hurts kind of goes into scaredy cat mode after last week. But the Barkley factor, if you just give him the ball, I don't think this Raiders defense can stop him. The Eagles should coast to a victory somehow. I just think it might look something like 17-9 or 10 or like 24-14 or some nonsense like that.
It's a big problem, and like the historical splits really kind of bear this out. And it's kind of nuts to say this about an offensive lineman, but the Eagles are like way under 500 when Lane Johnson's not playing. He's dealing with the foot issue. He was not practicing as of Wednesday.
Did Fred have another bad game? I forgot to watch him, but I assume he did. The right tackle, Fred, replaces Lane.
Okay. Yeah, Fred. Oh, yeah.
I assume that guy. I was going to say probably something slanderous about Fred, but I was like, I want to verify that I'm not, like, in this case being unfair to him. But pretty much every time you pay attention to Fred Johnson, it's like, wow, that is not Lane.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to look like Lane truly, but to me, another takeaway that I would have from Monday's game, and it'll be a matter of them doing it again on a short week, but the Eagles defense I thought looked terrific for the most part on Monday
They're
night.
Still dinged on the ground without Carter. That's the one thing. That's when they don't have Carter, they really do get a lot worse.
Herbert was, picking up those first downs with his legs late in the game, because I just don't think that he was able to do pretty much anything else at that stage. But I don't think Kenny Pickett's going to be doing that. I don't think he wants that smoke to begin with. So, Kenny Pickett playing quarterback is not going to go well, I don't think, for the Raiders. I wonder if they'll give him his Super Bowl ring there at this game, however, obviously. But I think that if the Eagles defense plays as well as it did on Monday, then I think that we're just going to see the Eagles be set up in short fields. And the Eagles do kind of feel like a team to me that would take this opportunity to, like, exercise some demons to beat up on a team that they are better than.
Right.
So I do think ultimately they get this done. But it's certainly like nowhere near like my best bet of the week or anything. But yeah, I think your visceral reaction is always going to be, when you see the Eagles that big of favorites, you're going to be like, no way. But I do think the Raiders kind of are that one exception there. Let's move on over. Oh, and Jalen Carter, yes, that is a big deal. Jordan Davis was also terrific on Monday night as well. I think he had maybe his best game ever as a pro. I thought
they should just give him more snaps. I assume his conditioning is fine, but I think they're doing that thing where they're like, he's so huge and he's so good as a run stuffer that we shouldn't use him in other situations too. Like, just he's too big and fast. Just put him on the field.
Yeah, I think, like that was like a problem at Georgia, but I think by the time that like his senior year or his last year at Georgia rolled around, like that was less of a thing, conditioning wise. But yeah, a lot of dogs on that Eagles defense. All right, Packers, Broncos. If I'm reading this right, I'm seeing Packers favored here in Denver.
Yeah, that's a little odd. Um, for the Broncos to kind of be underdogs at their own spot against the Packers is a little odd to me, and I think you can give the Packers a lot of credit and still feel that way. I mean, this is not a Packers team that's so good that we need to assume everybody who plays them is going to lose against them. I think it's more sure the Packers are one of the better teams in the league, but this is also one of the worst fields of NFL teams that I can remember in quite a while. And I don't know. I just am not as impressed by leading a division this year as I am most other years. And the Broncos, despite, we're both pretty skeptical of Bo Nix, I would say. And I
Yep.
think Sean Payton is a fraud, but Vance Joseph isn't a fraud. That defense is very serious. And even though Jordan Love is playing better this year, I think this would be the exact kind of setting where you would say, well, here's where the regression happens. And it's not like to criticize Jordan Love to say that. It's just like, I mean, this is a guy who pushes like 12 interceptions normally for every 500 passes he throws or whatever. So if he's at only 4 interceptions right now or whatever, you got to leave some space, consider his margins such that he maybe he throws 3 this week, and now you're more in line with your historical averages, and that's how quickly and easily it can happen. So normally the Packers win with a combination of like ball control, which is to say like their defense and the Josh Jacobs specific ground game, and Love kind of this year, especially he's making these good kind of kill shots. There's a really nice touchdown to interception ratio, but I'm not expecting the ground game to work easily against Denver. And just as with any other quarterback, if you take Jordan Love from favorable circumstances and then make him throw the ball instead in difficult situation, the results will just go sideways almost always. So I'm taking the Broncos to win this, not because I think they're so great or anything. And if they win, it'll need to be done by the defense. I don't think Bo Nix can play well against a decent defense, and the Packers certainly have that. So the Broncos could easily lose. I don't think that the higher scoring the game is, the better it looks for the Packers, I think, because I don't know how Bo Nix is supposed to lead the Broncos to so many as like 27 points here.
So, with the Jordan Love detail in mind and, how good the Broncos are both rushing the passer and in their secondary, how crucial is Josh Jacobs in this setup?
I think Jacobs is almost always crucial for the Packers. I think he's the heart of their offense, and he's playing limited, of course. The knee thing, I guess he's just been dealing with it for multiple weeks now.
Right.
That is a Josh Jacobs thing to do. That's a situation he found himself in a lot with the Raiders, where he's just, the Monty Python meme, but still
merely
going
a
out
flesh
there.
wound.
Still just keeps going out there, and nobody plays hurt as well as Josh Jacobs does at running back. So he'll, I think, be his more or less usual presence here, but it's not just about his presence. It's that Jacobs has gotten a certain level of production that the Packers expect at this point. And against the Broncos, I quite simply expect less from the offense. So the Packers have a lot of receiver depth at the moment, of course, that they maybe LaFleur can find a way to, I don't know, isolate Riley Moss against Christian Watson and create enough big plays through that to kind of get them the point total that they need. It's been happening a lot with Watson. I think you could say that was the story of multiple games since his return, and this would need to be another one of those yet. But if the Broncos decide to put Surtain on Watson, then that puts the Packers in a more challenging situation, I think.
I'm leaning Packers here mostly because my lack of trust in this Broncos offense, and
Yeah.
believe in this Packers defense. I think is how I'm leaning here.
The Broncos aren't committing to the run either. Like Sean Payton
No.
is not putting the cover that Bo Nix needs onto the field. This stuff where it's just giving like 10 carries to Harvey and 4 carries to McLaughlin. That's not going to cut it.
Nope. So I think, at first, viscerally, I'm like Packers favored on the road in Mile High right now. But, the Broncos have just won a million games in a row. I do wonder if they slip up here in this spot. Another good game in the afternoon window. We've got the Lions and the Rams. Are you surprised at all that the Rams are favored by this much, 5.5, 6 points?
Yeah, but it also is one of those things where as soon as I saw it, I just immediately accepted. Like, okay, well, I'm missing something, and hopefully I can figure out what it is. Not that I did. I still don't really know why the spread is quite that much, but I respect it. I guess what I can say at the very least is that I definitely expect the Rams to score points. I definitely think Nakua Adams is, the McVay effect. We throw it all together. I think that's way too much for the Lions' cornerback personnel. I know that those guys had, was it against Dallas? They had some good looks, like Amick Robertson and Rock Yassin were getting some praise in that game, but it's like that was just a game where for whatever reason the refs kind of were letting them hold a lot more, and usually they don't. And like when you see Amick Robertson unable to hold and get away with it, he just, because he's a backup caliber player, like he immediately just gets washed away. And I expect that to have guys like Avonte Maddox lining up against Puka Nakua. Like this is not sufficient. You don't have the good enough players to cover these guys. So I expect Stafford to go. I expect the Rams in general to go on offense. I still don't know how skeptical to be of the Detroit offense, though. And of course, I'm inclined to take up any kind of goof related narrative. I'm inclined to kind of say like that guy's fake, but it's still not easy for me to look at Goff and the Lions offense and see how they fall behind an entire touchdown and never catch back up more than that.
Yeah, and it's going to be good conditions indoors and everything. So I mean, we've got a total here of 55.5, and I'm definitely not surprised to see that. I think we could, the over is definitely in play here. Let's check in on the Rams backfield. We kind of talked about it a little bit last week with Corum seemingly coming on just a little bit here down the stretch, and McVay maybe moving off of his I have one running back type of mantra. So your thoughts on the Kyren Corum backfield pairing right now as it goes for this matchup where the Lions are kind of uniquely good against the run. I think that we're going to see a ton of action through the air. I think that's the way you attack the Lions. So probably a lot of that, but with that in mind, how does this set up for the LA ground game?
Yeah, I never thought I'd see it, but it does seem like McVay has all but officially changed the policy, and that Blake Corum, not that he's getting an even split, it's still only about a third, but if the second running back for the Rams is taking up a third of the snaps, that's basically a third more of the snaps than the backup running back was getting the past 3 years. So definitely eats into Kyren Williams' production. No way around that. But I don't know. I think even in a tough matchup, if only because of how often the Rams get into scoring range, you still probably consider Williams something like a running back 2 type. Maybe that's a little generous. I don't know. But I actually think the Rams might be able to run a little bit on the Lions, or at least a little bit better than most teams tend to against the Lions, just because the Rams do so much sort of Sean McVay specific, peculiar zone running back concept, zone running, run blocking concepts. And the biggest problem with running the ball against the Lions is just the massive humanity they put in front of you. Like they put 2 nose tackles onto the field at all times pretty much, and no other team does that. So it's just that the trade-off is maybe the Lions lose a little bit of the interior pass rush, or maybe they even lose something on their edge defense, but you can't push them over. You can't push them over and just go around them. But what you can do with these zone designs of McVay's is you can sort of change the equation a little bit. Like you're not trying to overpower them anymore. You're sort of trying to more so. Like in a lot of cases, it's almost like you're trying to bait them into stepping out of their gap, thinking kind of that they're seeing one thing when they're seeing something else actually. And Avila, Dotson have gotten such good results at guard the past couple of years. I definitely don't worry for the Rams' run game, but I do think with Corum's emergence, the days of Kyron Williams being a fantasy running back one are definitely gone.
Yeah, we have Kyron ranked as RB 19 this week, and Corum probably more lower end flex consideration. He's RB 35 for us. Let's see here. Moving on, we've got the Panthers and the Saints. Are the Saints lively, or did the Bucs just kind of like screw around last week?
It could be a little bit of both. Obviously, Tyler Shuck being willing to run kind of brought some life into the offense. And
I did not know that was in his bag whatsoever.
Well, yeah, it was weird that he didn't run more earlier on because he ran like a 4.62 or something at the combine. Like as an athlete, he's basically like Blaine Gabbert or something like that. Like Blaine Gabbert was actually very athletic, just a bad quarterback.
Yep.
But I still think Shuck 2 is probably not that good. It's a pretty low bar when what the standard we were basically holding him to was having like one pretty okay game, and that when he did, we were like, whoa.
He had a good one against the Panthers too.
Fair enough. And I guess like he's better than Rattler. I definitely don't mean to do any Rattler apologia, but I still think a guy like Shuck, being as raw as he is at his age and having the college career that he did, only happens if there's some kind of pretty enormous hitch in his game somewhere. With how toolsy he is, with all the opportunities he had to play, he point blank should have played more and better than he did in college, and he just kind of didn't. So maybe he just had the worst luck of all time, but usually there's a bit of a reason in there somewhere. And in any case, good for him. And maybe he does keep it going. Maybe he does turn out to be some sort of answer for the Saints. But I guess I'm just my Eviro Ejiro trutherism, my kind of enduring doubt of the Saints as a team. I'm not expecting another good game from Shuck here. I wouldn't even criticize him that much because I really do think Eviro Ejiro is one of the best defensive coordinators.
So this one's a little bit more of like a heady question or more like long term, but I go on the radio every Tuesday in Louisiana. Shout out to Sean Fox and the sports company down there. And they asked me point blank on Tuesday, if you're the Saints, do you take a quarterback in the draft this year, or do you see what you've got in Tyler Shuck next year? And for me, I said, you're a ways away from competing anyway. I don't like this quarterback class really at all. And you already spent a second round pick on Shuck. I say let him prove one way or the other and just kind of figure it out for the 2027 draft class. So I'm in favor of Shuck starting for the Saints next year. But what would you say about that?
I don't have any predetermined belief on that. To me, it's just comes down to the practicality that you alluded to of what are their odds of actually getting a better quarterback, because the consensus, the general conventional wisdom right now is you just spend on quarterback as much as you can all the time, no matter what. And if you have a draft pick and you need a quarterback, you got to take a quarterback. Doesn't matter how bad they are. You got to take a quarterback as the highest EPA. And I certainly reject that stuff. I really hate that crap. And if people were saying that the Saints should move on from Shuck by taking another quarterback just because that's what they have to do when they have a high pick, I reject that with contempt. But I am certainly interested in trying to do better than Shuck.
Sure.
It's just that I'm not gonna declare just the highest quarterback on the board to be that.
No, I don't know if they have any. I mean, I think the Cardinals trading Kyler Murray is going to be difficult. I mean, I guess that would make
Mike McDaniel
Yeah, there you go.
Gamer club, gamer gang, the back.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, I was just
So yeah,
like trying
not
to.
New Orleans. I don't think New Orleans has reason to go after Kyler. But
No,
whatever.
it's a
He's
tricky
gonna be
contract.
free. I think the Cardinals are gonna have to cut him or trade him for like a 7th or something.
Yeah,
Just because of the contract.
contract is gnarly. I guess on the Panther side of this, before we move on, what are you looking for offensively for Carolina here in the Dome?
Speaking of the modern assumptions of overspending on quarterback that I hate so much, those reports about the Panthers taking up the 5th-year option on Bryce Young's contract is really funny. He's like, at the very least, you have to be like, this guy needs to take a pay cut. Like, you're not possibly saying like, oh, we got to lock this guy down. But yep, actually we are, because that's just what consultants in the NFL say. And who are we to like not just listen to some random consultants that worked for hedge funds 2 years ago? Anyway, I don't think Bryce Young is very good, despite his really good game against the Rams and his really good game against the Falcons. But he has been playing better lately. I could be wrong. Certainly, Ted McMillan has brought an element to the offense that Young never had before, and it hurt Young to not have that element before. So if he keeps improving, maybe I'm wrong. But in the meantime, I still don't think anyone but Tetero McMillan is going to, maybe Coker. Coker's solid. Leggett, though, they got to get him off the field. And, the ground game still is where it all works for the Panthers. So I'm expecting that to continue here. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Dowdle and Hubbard. I feel like we've seen conclusively that Dowdle was not better than Hubbard. He was just less injured and fresher than Hubbard and had a way easier schedule. And now we're seeing the pendulum kind of go the other way, where it's Dowdle playing hurt and Hubbard's healthy, and now he looks faster. It's like, yeah, that's what happens when you have hurt running backs play next to healthy ones. The hurt one looks slower. But their ground game should work well, whatever way it sorts out.
I think so too. For everyone's edification, let's see here. We have Chuba as RB30 and Dowdle as RB20 for this week. Just a statement from our rankings. Before we get on to our next game, we do have a message from our friends at Blue Wire. And look at that. We're on to arguably the game of the week. Seahawks, Colts, Riley Leonard, or Phillip Rivers. The line is 13.5 or 14, depending on where you're looking. I mean, I think that we know that this is like a really rough spot for Indianapolis. Just like the quick turnaround of like having your season basically just neutralized in one play last week. But like what? Obviously, like you're going to keep starting Jonathan Taylor, but is there anyone else you can really like start with confidence here down the stretch for them?
No, I guess we hope Phillip Rivers proves physically capable of suiting up as soon as possible, because I have to believe the Riley Leonard projection is pretty bad for all the pass catchers, and maybe Rivers can't be worse. So it is all very weird and borderline macabre, though. I'm not really sure what the Colts are supposed to do. And it's pretty nauseating to think about how they were going just all in on Daniel Jones this 1 year, like this, on a 1-year contract. And then this happens in part because they had him playing on a broken fibula, which, maybe people shouldn't do that in the future. Colts, they are a wretched organization, and Chris Ballard, his riverboat spending spree the other day has already aged quite poorly.
Yep. So I'm feeling queasy for any of my indie pass catchers. I thank them for their contributions during the season. Alec Pierce, one of the more like profitable best ball picks.
Yeah,
but
great call.
Yeah, it's just not really gonna work.
Well,
it's
in the last round. I mean, he did his part already.
Big time. So now you thank him for getting you to the playoffs, and then it's on from there. But yeah, I think if you're in Indianapolis, like the last thing I'll say on this game, I was really frustrated a couple of years ago with Indianapolis. They were also in a real bind at quarterback, and they had Sam Ehlinger. and they didn't run him. You
Oh
need
yeah,
if
that
you
was
have
right.
Riley Leonard, you have to run him. You have to.
That was I
like,
forgot about how mad I got about that, and mad at Frank Reich about that. That was stupid.
I
But
think
yeah,
we might have even gotten mad at Jeff Saturday, during that
we're
time.
always
Like,
mad at Jeff Saturday.
that's right. Lyman he's too skinny now. It scares me. But I do think Indianapolis needs to. Riley Leonard cannot throw at an NFL level. I'm confident of that. He can run a little bit, which could be enough of a curveball.
He can throw his skull at defenders. Like he can throw his head at their heads and tumble belligerently in a direction.
Leonard famously in the national championship game last year, like Notre Dame comes out and scores on their opening drive. He runs it like 7-8 times on that drive, getting hit by these Ohio State guys, scores a touchdown, and then is just like puking on the sidelines immediately. And you're like, oh boy, we're in for a long night.
Yeah, he's picked up the mantle that Taylor Heineke left behind of doing jackass on the NFL field.
I mean, I'm always going to have respect for those guys, but yeah, I don't think it's going to result in a particularly. And Seattle, just like, I feel like they're a team that, like, if you are not coming correct, they are going to just mop the floor with you. And I think that we're in a setup like that this week, so I wouldn't even mind laying the wood here. We do have a quick question: Brock Purdy or Jackson Dart? I would go Jackson Dart in that one, to our friend Ben. Couple games left here. Titans, Niners, another big spread. Niners 12.5.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a lot of points, but you do expect the Titans to fall back to earth after last week. Not Shamir Dike, though. Shamir Dike is probably rookie of the year, but the Tony Pollard thing is not going to repeat itself. Not to take credit away from Pollard. Pollard's a totally good player, and he was due for a stat correction in large part because he was just overworked for the last 2 years, and finally get some rest. Starts to look more like he did in Dallas when he was playing off the bench and was so explosive. But you're still not going to, even if Tony Pollard were, peak Dallas Tony Pollard, he's not having 2 games in a row like last week. So the Titans fall back that way. Shamir Dike can only do so much. So even if it's by the Titans barely scoring any points, I guess you can see how the 49ers might cover here.
I think so too. On the Niners side of the ledger, I think they're coming off the bye, should be a little bit healthier here. Outside of like your usual McCaffrey and Kittle.
I think we get Pearsall going.
Okay. All right. That's kind of what I was angling at. I wanted to see your thoughts there. But yeah, him with extra week off, I think maybe finally we see something out of Pearsall this year.
Also, these Titans corners are not NFL corner, like they're backups of guys who are backups. So it's just the first time Pearsall is going to be wide open in a while.
Okay. All right. Good looking out there. Next up, we got the Vikings and the Cowboys. Vikings 6.5 point underdogs in Dallas here.
Well, good for JJ McCarthy, I guess. I don't want to see him fail, so it was certainly difficult to watch him, and he was incredibly bad up until last week. And even last week, it's like 23 pass attempts. Seems like it was a sheltered game plan, and of course the Washington defense is terrible, to the point, by the way, that I don't even know if the Washington defense is better than the Dallas one by now.
At this stage, no, I don't think so.
Quinn Williams there, especially. So I am not assuming JJ McCarthy has 6 touchdowns in 2 weeks. I'm not assuming he even has 2 touchdowns in this game. I'm more so expecting something like 1 touchdown and 1 interception in this game. But I don't know. I guess the Vikings might be able to run the ball okay. Certainly, as long as Jefferson is out there, you gotta be ready for a quick drive, a quick march up the field from the Vikings. And the Vikings defense could be a challenge for Dallas. I mean, I don't want to contribute to what I think is kind of like largely an unfair, criticism of Dak Prescott. You see a lot of harsh criticism of him when Dallas disappoints, which they do often. But if Dak Prescott struggles against Brian Flores, I am not going to get on Dak Prescott about it. I think Brian Flores has shown that he can put a lot of good offenses in really difficult spots, and it would just kind of be a Cowboy thing to do, to sort of just sleepwalk into the game and let the Vikings pass rush get going at their expense a little bit. But I don't see that as the most likely outcome. I guess I'll take Dallas to win, but Dak needs to not throw turnovers, throw interceptions. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's always a potential hindrance there for the Cowboys. Both these teams fighting for their playoff lives. They're the two lowest teams that haven't been eliminated yet from the playoffs. The Cowboys 6-6-1, the Vikings 5-8. So both teams I think are going to be going at it here, but one side is Dak Prescott, the other has JJ McCarthy. I'm gonna go Dak here in this one. And then let's round it out here. We got the Dolphins and the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Steelers 3-point favorites here.
You gotta hate them. You just gotta hate them.
I do. They always find a way. I mean, last week was, I don't know. Every year there's a game that's just abysmal against them. So I imagine that they'll get them back in Pittsburgh because that seems to be how it works. But was it a catch? Was it not a catch? How do you say that Aaron Rodgers caught it? Why did you say it was a roughing the center when he didn't get I don't know. There's a lot in that game that is making me upset again. Anyway.
Fair enough. I actually think the Steelers got to be a little careful with the Dolphins, just in the sense that, mostly in the sense that the Steelers are still a crap team, and Aaron Rodgers is basically just a pain in the ass. I mean, he played only vaguely well in the capacity that he did last week because it was a pain in the ass thing to do. It wasn't it wasn't because he was good or that it was like, well, this is a meaningful accomplishment for the Steelers and now they can build on it and compete for a Super Bowl. It's like, no, Aaron Rodgers was just capable of that in that moment because it was very annoying to be able to do that. So he was able to do it. It's not evidence, in my opinion, that Rodgers is ready to play like truly consistent, good starting NFL quarterback. The Dolphins, of course, are at best uneven on defense. Their run defense has improved lately, but I doubt you would call it good. It might be good enough to stall a running back room as underwhelming as Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, but the main thing is the pass rush for the Dolphins can get going, and if Rodgers turns back into the 2025, 2024 version of Rodgers we've mostly seen other than last week, then that Dolphins pass rush can make that version of Rodgers quite ineffective. And you're assuming Tua kind of plays bad or whatever, but if both quarterbacks are playing bad and it comes more so down to the ground game, then it starts to tilt toward the Dolphins pretty rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers the last couple of weeks have gotten completely gashed on the ground. I think there was like a famous graphic during the Bills game that was the most rushing yards that they had allowed since they moved into Heinz Field, Acrisure, whatever you want to call it. But the Bills just ran all over them, and the Ravens outrushed the Steelers by like almost 200 yards or something last week too. So, yeah, you definitely give the edge to especially in these conditions. Like I think you want to limit the amount of exposure you have with Tua needing to, or putting yourself in a position where Tua needs to make the play. I think you want to get Achane, Ollie Gordon as involved as possible. The Dolphins sneakily winners of 5 of their last 6, including 4 in a row. So
McDaniel
usually
it was
this
never
time
him
of
that was
year,
wrong.
This time of year, playing outdoors in the elements like this, I would almost across the board always say like I'm fading the Dolphins. But I think you stack it up matchups here. I give the Dolphins a chance here.
If they stick to the ground game, yeah, they have to get the ground game going, and if they do, then at worst they're kind of equal with the Steelers because maybe 2 is going to be bad, but I again feel pretty safe in assuming Rodgers is not likely to throw for more than like 190 yards himself.
Yeah, I thought last week was oddly like the best he's looked in years. It should be, or DK Metcalf should be back in action. We were talking to Jeff and Nick on the XM show about that as well. He had the huge game, had to stay in Baltimore afterwards, but he's been kind of a tricky guy to manage for redraft this year. He's been kind of running pretty hot and cold. That was his first game with double-digit fantasy points since week 8 against the Packers. Yeah. So do you feel all right rolling him out here this week in the playoffs?
It's complicated. I think Metcalf is good. He's actually more or less been the same player this year that he's always been on a per snap basis, but the Steelers have a pretty unambitious offense. Like, they don't run that many plays in general. The plays that they run are not as often pass plays as most other offenses. So it's just tough to repeat last week's numbers when you're more likely to get 6 targets than the 12 that he got last week. But if I have Metcalf, I'm probably starting him. I don't want last week to happen on my bench.
No, definitely not. So, I mean, if you've made it here, it's not necessarily because of DK Metcalf, but maybe there's some
he can
late
dust these
season magic
too.
from him.
These guys really cannot cover him.
So that is something to keep an eye on Monday night. That is going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Best of luck to everybody in their fantasy playoff matchups this weekend. We'll catch you next week. And of course, be sure if you've been eliminated or if you just like playing DFS, catch our DFS episode with Scott Genstad and Ryan Belangi. That will be dropping on Friday. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.